This is Hannibal here with a daily wrestling news update. And this is a big one today. There's a lot of news, so I'll jump right into it. I listened to Wrestling Observer Radio today, and Dave Meltzer says it appears Linda McMahon, who has a long history working with Donald Trump, donating to his campaign and other Republican candidates, looks like she's probably going to be the new Secretary of Commerce under his administration. So congratulations to her on that. It seems like the whole Vince McMahon thing has already started to blow over. But we're not going to get into that right now. They're still married. Gable Steveson is apparently going back to the Minnesota Golden Gophers next year for his final year of eligibility. I believe the NCAA finals are going to be at the stadium in Minnesota next year. I believe SummerSlam is coming there soon too as well. I'm going to have to go to Minnesota one of these days. I like all the wrestlers from Minnesota, including John the Berserker Nord, who I interviewed yesterday. One thing I gotta say is Dave Meltzer constantly going on and on and on, and I like him, but about how hot WWE is. Why have they stopped doing house shows if they're so hot? Because in the 80s and Attitude Era, there was multiple house shows a night, every night of the week. And here's just my point. I also work in the gym, guys, and all I've been hearing people talk about in the gym this week is the Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul boxing match on Friday. I remember in the Attitude Era, people were talking about WWE. I never hear anybody talking about WWE. I mean, I'm not saying that they're not making more money than ever, but I just do not compare this period to the Attitude Era or the Golden Hulk Hogan era. And by the way, speaking of the gym, I did catch some of NXT at the gym tonight, and there was a match between Stephanie Valker and Julia against the Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson, which I just looked up the name of. I have to say, they did a spot here where one of them stepped on the shoulders of the other girl, and I don't know if this is Stephanie Valker and Julia catching them or who is who, but it seemed like they were as impressive as that was athletically. It seemed like they were. It looked so phony. It looked really, really, really phony. That's all I got to say about that. I mean, it just goes back to me doing the interview with John Nord yesterday when he did the sword thing with the Undertaker. Undertaker rolled out of the way and he missed with the sword. Like, that was believable, and you thought those two hated each other. You thought Berserker almost killed the Undertaker. You wouldn't see them in promos every single week before a match standing in the ring talking to each other for 10 minutes like they do now. Now they say, it's funny, and I even see this for AEW, and I don't mean to complain. This is just, I'm just explaining why I don't watch it. I still find the news interesting. But like now they announce, oh, a segment is happening this week on Dynamite. It's going to be this person talking to this person in the ring for 10 minutes. Why do I even want to see this? I don't know. I'd rather see wrestling if I'm going to watch wrestling. Yes, you can throw promos in here and there, but I'm not going to tune in to see a segment of two people just talking to each other in the ring. Speaking of AEW, apparently Jon Moxley, who's been mostly in the news lately for doing grappling tournaments where he gets his butt kicked by regular people, which makes it hard to suspend disbelief that he's tough, to be honest with you. But congratulations to him to putting himself out there like that. But he says he's going to turn AEW around. Here's just the one thing. Jon Moxley was advertised for every single Canadian show this year, and there was like 10. He didn't show up on any of them. Anybody can look that up. There was at least 10 American shows this year, 2024, that he was advertised for and didn't show up at? How is the guy that's advertised for the most show of the year and doesn't even show up at the shows, whether that's his fault or Tony Khan's fault for not paying attention to who's being advertised on these shows? But when you're on the poster for the show and on billboards in front of arena and you're not actually on the show, like, people start to get mad because they pay money to see you, then you're not there. So you kind of lose credibility. So do I think he's going to be able to turn things around? I wish him luck, but he's not hot right now, to use Dave Meltzer's words. And even Dave Meltzer said when talking about this, for AEW to turn around, they're either going to need to get a star from WWE that's really hot that will bring them a lot of attention. For instance, I don't know. I don't think they're going to sign Roman Reigns. He's making $15 million. I don't think they're going to sign The Rock. He's on the board of directors. They had their chance with Goldberg. I mean, I don't know who they could sign to bring them attention, but I agree with Meltzer. He says for AEW to turn around, they're going to either need to find a new star or someone's really going to have to step it up, because there's no real breakout stars. And like the other thing, and I agree with Vince Russo, I don't mean to go on several rants on here. Vince Russo said when he was booking the Attitude Era back, which was one of the boom periods, like him or hate him, he tried to get people on all the shows, even if it was just for a 10-second segment, 30-second segment. In AEW, there's times where you won't see a wrestler for long periods of time, even though they're under contract, and you forget about them and they lose momentum. There's tons of examples of that. So it's like, for instance, MJF, I'm not saying he's not talented. I'm not saying he's going to get a buzz about him again. But to me, he's lost a lot of the buzz that he had a year ago. He doesn't have that buzz about him. He's making $5 million a year now. And as I said, he's talented, but he's gone off and done movies and stuff. And he's had injuries. So he's lost a lot of momentum. I mean, there's a ton of cases of people like that in AEW. Okada, there's another example of someone who has a huge multi-million dollar contract and they hardly use because he lives in Japan. Him and his wife apparently had a kid. Congratulations to him. Collision did a 0.10 rating on the weekend. So anyways, yeah, I'm all I'm saying about Jon Moxley is, again, he must have a little bit to do with it, because there was a show actually in around the Cincinnati area of Ohio, around the area where he lives, that he was advertised for and didn't even show up for this year. There's like, how can we have faith in Jon Moxley when literally every single Canadian, AEW slapped all of us here in Canada in the face by the amount of no-shows they had for their Canadian tour this year, which is, I mean, I don't know if they're going to come back to Canada. I imagine they'll go to the major cities again, but obviously with no further announcements for anything for Canada anytime soon, they haven't even run Canada for a few months. You'd have to imagine that tour wasn't very financially successful, because when it is financially successful, you want to come back to the same places. But you got to actually, and again, they're saying they want to revamp their live events. Just start having the people that advertise show up. And instead of advertising like 8 stars on the poster and have all these people we've never heard of actually at the shows from Ring of Honor that doesn't even have a TV show, and using even local guys, actually have the stars that you're paying millions to show up on all the shows. That's a real good piece of advice. Bunch of Trump fans on here. I don't think you would ever see me in AEW, and you could never say never. For one thing, I'm honest, and I'm not a good politician at all. But like, I'm not friends with any of those guys. Look at the Canadian guy. I mean, Omega's good, Jericho's good, but like, what's his name? Evil Uno. The two jobbers from WWE that they hired and have done nothing with, which I can't even remember their names, but they're under contract, hardly wrestling. But it's all political. It's just a matter of fact. But I thank you guys for supporting me on here, and I'll be right back with a UFO news update. Hope you have a wonderful night.